All right, it is 7:02 PM, and I'm calling the Hamilton Planning Board March 24th meeting to order. So when I call your name, would you please indicate that you're present? Jonathan Poor,
Jonathan Poor, present.
Emil Dahlquist,
Emil Dahlquist, present.
Darcy Dale,
Darcy Dale, present.
Matt Hamill,
Present.
Jeff Austin,
Present.
Marnie Crouch, present.
Oh, and you have someone else?
And
Mr.
I think you're here.
That's right.
Mr. Wheaton, are you present?
I'm present.
Yes.
And so I note that Ben Hur is not present and Pat Norton is not present at the moment. They may arrive. This meeting is being recorded. And so we can dive right in to our land use application. So we have a Form A, an approval not required request.
A&R.
So the gentlemen who are here have filed this application, and could you please identify yourself for the record, because I'm unable to make out your names too well.
Attorney Rich Kalman, 9 Ocean Drive, Ipswich, Massachusetts.
Angela Busillo, the homeowner.
Okay, and if you just give us a little background, we have the map, and, we actually have a nice bigger map, thank you, Mark, than the one I printed, so this is much more legible than the
That's the
one.
plan, right?
Yeah, the one I was reading was very difficult to read. So, yes,
Good evening, Rich Kalman. I actually was here last fall for another plan of Welch and Lamson.
oh, that's right,
That's,
yeah.
there you go, 25 years without coming, and now I'm here twice.
Oh, well, maybe we'll see you in a couple meetings.
I'll be back again.
Good for business, we're good for business, right?
So this is a very simple matter. Angelo and his wife Martha own 4 lots, which are shown on this plan inside the solid line. And the house itself is on lot 2. It doesn't show the house, but that was the first purchase by Angelo, and then his parents or others deeded him lot 3, and you can see books and pages for each of those deeds. And then lot 1B came at the same time really with lot 3. And the last little piece was this lot 1A, which was just conveyed to Martha and Angelo by his parents last November. But it was done, that one was done just by a description that was meets and bounds, which is not the best way to do it. But there was kind of an urgency to get it done with the idea that we'd come and get a plan done. And so this plan, as it's noted kind of in the left, upper left, it says lots 1A, 1B, 2, and 3 are to be combined to become one lot. Oh yeah, the reason for taking the lot 1A from his parents was it made him conforming. Now he's 20,000 square feet in the district. So
Oh, okay.
the parents' land is just raw land, unbuildable for now. So they just gave him up a little piece, and now he's in a conforming. And I met with Mr. Connors to review the plan, and it was really his suggestion to make it clear to this board that all these other parcels were already owned, to add the books and pages, just to show that we weren't creating anything, not subdividing anything, and that might have been a more involved process. We're just combining all of those lots. And so now the description, if he ever goes to sell or they sell, right now you have to reference the description of lot 2 on a plan, and lot 3 and lot 1B. Now this plan will get recorded, and if and when they ever sell or just refinance, this with the hard boundaries now consists of what they own. And the assessor is very glad to have this.
Oh, yeah.
When she saw it was a meets and bounds, she was like, please, can you get a survey?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Have to put a plug in for her. So this is good that now there's a surveyor saying, yeah, the lot 1A, which went on in November, the surveyor surveyed it, that's the boundaries, now it's on a plan. And that's the only piece that actually has to be added to the assessor's map, because right now the current tax bill already is the other 3 lots.
Okay,
But now this this little strip.
And when it's all combined, will it be referenced as Lot 2, or?
You know, they didn't, what you'd really, if I were the attorney drafting the deed, I would say the land with the buildings thereon,
Yeah.
and you reference shown on the plan of land, and you can title it right down in the right corner. And then I would add, at the bottom, said parcel consists of Lot 3, Lot 2, Lot 1B, just so that someone who looks at the deed and then looks at the plan says, oh yeah, now, you know, there's no reason to put a deed on record, they own it, but hopefully whenever somebody, you know, if they get a mortgage, I don't know if they ever plan to get another mortgage, hopefully not, right? Hopefully not. Hopefully that when it sells.
At least not now.
They'll just reference this plan, and then the description could say it consists of these 4 lots.
Yeah.
Showing them,
Right.
so,
Do any board members have any questions?
Seems pretty clear cut to me.
Seems pretty logical
Yes.
to me.
Is Bass Road more of a paper road?
yes,
It doesn't physically exist.
that's right.
Okay.
That is true.
That's,
Oh.
I'm puzzled about looking at the map. It's not there.
No,
Yeah, I didn't see it either.
Yeah,
I was looking for it.
We have a few roads in Ipswich, those
Yeah.
paper roads.
Yes. And is there anything, there's nothing built on the paper road, it just creates another, it creates in a sense another frontage, or is
I
there,
mean, the frontage is on Birch,
right?
but you know Bass Road.
Bass Road is in the back and it's just a dirt, it goes to a pond. It's
And
not built.
do other folks have rights to it? I mean, I know it's not germane to this, I'm just
My
trying to
parents-
understand the
My
context.
parents live on the other side of me, so they have
Oh,
rights to it.
nice.
I see.
But does it actually have a path even, or does it just look like yard?
It's hard gravel coming down and it's a grown.
Okay, so it's completely unimproved.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay, just
Nice.
trying to understand what I'm looking at.
Understood.
Yeah, I noticed that, look at the GIS map, and it looked like you had parcels 2, 3, and 1B drawn on the GIS map, but the 1A was missing. So now you explained, I
That's
believe,
right. This-
what happened, the sequencing of it. So now you're, apparently they were separate, or stayed separate, and now you're putting everything together. Because they didn't indicate the individual lots on that GIS map.
Right, I mean, he does.
They didn't
only get
separate
one-
lot 2
he
from
does only
3.
get one tax bill.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but if you were to describe the property without this plan,
Yeah.
you'd have to say lot 2, and you'd refer to a plan that was done, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Or so, and then you'd say lot 3 on another plan that was done, and so the description becomes much easier to just say,
Yeah.
it is all 4 of these.
Yeah.
And right, the assessor will adjust the GIS and everything else accordingly.
So were there houses on Lot 70 and Lot 68?
70 is like 4.5 acres, is it? That's just vacant land, just mostly
No,
wetlands.
no.
It's wetlands.
Wetlands, okay.
And I don't know what's up, is there a neighbor there?
Just out of curiosity, yeah.
I think 66 is the neighbor,
Or 68? Yeah,
68.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they didn't show the house on this plan, you don't really need to, but the
No, no,
house
no.
sits on lot 2.
It's up on
Yeah.
the
The
screen.
rest, they added to over the years, probably
Yes.
just to give them a bigger yard, or, I don't know the back history.
Oh, there it
Although
is
we
up on
worked
this.
together on this for a while.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, there it is.
So are the pools indeed in the paper road right of way?
No,
Oh, there we go.
I mean, I know GIS is notoriously inaccurate.
the paper road is probably a good 30, 40, 50 yards this way.
Oh.
So
There you go.
the paper road's over here. Bass Road,
Is that a pool?
yes.
That pool is part of 1A?
I didn't even know there was a pool there.
No, that pool would be my parents' lot.
That's lot 70.
That's for your parents in the back?
But that sliver of 1A is right there next to the 75 feet, which
Yeah.
interacts with that pool, correct?
You are correct. I mean, I didn't even know there was a pool there, because I've just been adding the piece to make it conforming. And always, if that were ever to become an issue with neighbors or something, that's one of those things where the neighbors say, oh, we want to use that road.
Right.
and please move your pool.
That pool is not near the road.
I know you say it right, it might be within the way, but not where the actual road. I'm just saying,
Often a physical element is different from the legal boundary. They
right.
might not
This
match up.
is wider than where the road is within it. And that's not uncommon for folks to,
Yeah.
you know, when it's paper and hopefully if it ever becomes an issue, you have to deal with it then.
Okay, well, does anyone have any other questions? This is a part of Hamilton that I'm not really familiar with. I mean, I think if you don't know someone down there, it's not like it's on the way to anything.
Nice and private.
No offense, I mean,
Yeah,
Can't get there from here.
yeah.
Not a bad thing.
yeah, it's not a bad thing.
Up there?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really off the grid.
Tons of paper roads in this part of Hamilton.
Yeah, that's right.
and I think Gregory Island Road goes into Essex,
It does, yes.
Yeah.
because I had a friend who lived there and she lived in Essex.
Yeah. It's at the very end,
Yeah,
it goes into Essex, there's a sign saying entering Essex.
right.
Is it a dead end road or is it a throughway?
Where?
Gregory Line Road,
It's a dead end.
Yeah.
but it is in Essex at the end.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And it's all ledge, because she used to talk to me about her
I
septic
get- I
system.
was-
That's like all camps, like
Yeah.
all camps down there. and
Yeah.
It ends up right at the lake.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I wish I could dredge the lake and clean it. It was so nice years ago. And
Is
then
it-
that
it's-
weed.
Yep.
oh,
They put the boat ramp in and everybody could use it. The weed got taken in by a boat, just decided to take over the whole lake.
Oh wow.
right.
They couldn't figure out, they could put like carp in there that would eat it, but that would kill the fish. It's just been a nightmare. It's just all getting overgrown.
Oh, that's too bad.
It is,
It's dangerous too for people.
yeah.
Yeah, I think there's algae in there sometimes that's
Yeah,
dangerous
they
to
froze it
dogs.
sometimes, they ended up frozen.
Yeah. Oh, that's too bad.
I think years ago, they used to take ice out of it.
Oh, yes.
The horses
Yeah.
used to want to cut ice
So,
and train it.
Have your parents lived there a long time?
Yeah, yeah, my parents have been there. They've been there probably 60-something years. Yeah.
The scary part is 60 years isn't that far back.
I know.
I know, I know.
That's
Funny.
Hey, this isn't part of planning board business, okay? How old we are.
I had to pass that along.
Okay, okay. He's a youngster over there. We have some youngsters over there. Okay, so I will, in the absence of any more questions, entertain a motion to approve this application for endorsement of a plan believed not to require approval.
I'll make a motion that we vote for the application for endorsement of plan believed not to require approval.
Do I have any planning board members on Zoom by any chance?
We do not.
You do not. So with that said, all in favor? Aye.
Did we second it?
We didn't
We
second
didn't
it.
second it.
Oops.
So
Oh,
second.
Second?
Second.
Okay, now we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Congratulations.
Mark, should I come by tomorrow? Should I come by?
Yeah, they'll sign at the end of the meeting and you can hook it up.
Well, I guess I'll get a. Should I?
It'll be at the Patton Homestead, so, it'll be at the Patton Homestead.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, but okay.
Yeah, so anytime tomorrow I'll be
You
there.
think that, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you. Yeah.
Again, Mary.
Never know.
Have a good night.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you too. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is grant opportunities, and we must thank Mark because he brought these to our attention originally. So, in your package is a memorandum that I sent to Mark and Emil, and it was really almost for my benefit as well, because I went on the Commonwealth's website and looked at the various grants that they have available to communities, and I identified 3 that I thought had potential. And I'm not going to go through the memorandum. I will just say that the first grant program that I identified, called the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative Capital Grant Program, which is, I assume, administered by the Executive Office of Economic Development, seemed to be the most suitable for the types of things that we might like to do here in Hamilton. So if you haven't read it, it's on, just a summary of it on pages 2 and 3 of the memo, which should be part of your package if you want to just skim through that real quickly. Or alternatively, I could just read the introduction and you'll see why I think it's so good. That might be a good thing for the record, so I will do that. So the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative Capital Grant Program strengthens the economic and cultural vitality of the Commonwealth's downtown, village centers, and main streets by investing in vibrant, livable centers that attract residents, stimulate business activity, and promote equitable regional growth. Building on the foundation of the original MDI Technical Assistance Program, MDI Capital helps municipalities transform their downtowns into thriving, walkable, and inclusive destinations. Through a combination of design and implementation grants, the program advances both local and statewide economic development priorities by reducing vacancies, increasing pedestrian activity, and fostering resilient, business-friendly districts that enhance quality of life and reinforce Massachusetts' reputation as an exceptional place to live, work, and invest. And the capital planning grants specifically reference the public realm. And so I think this is really something that we should strongly consider, although Mark advises that in applying for grants, you are not limited to just one planning grant. It would be possible to simultaneously submit a grant under the Community Planning Grant Program. So that's a topic of discussion. But I also wanted to just highlight some of the aspects of the one-stop grant application process. So the Commonwealth, if you go on its website, it has templates for different grant programs. So in your package is, there should be, Community One Stop for Growth Planning and Zoning Community Planning template. And I just want to point out some things about this. So there's a possibility of a joint application. So I would be remiss in not indicating that if we were to pursue any type of planning grant, it would behoove the planning board to communicate with the HDC because its prior grant application for, I think it was $500,000 for capital improvements under the Mass Works program. So when the Commonwealth reviews these applications, they're always eager to see that there's more than one organization or board that's involved in the application. It just strengthens the score that you receive. These applications are scored so that there's it's apples to apples when they're reviewing applications. So do you have this? It says Community One Stop for Growth fiscal year 27 full applications
Yes.
sample template. So
Question, Marty, is that applicable to the MDI?
I believe so, yes.
it's the
Because
same-
it's the
same
one-stop program, so
Okay.
I believe it is. Now, if
All right.
you were to call the Commonwealth, maybe they would correct me, but I believe it is. It is. And, yeah, and the applications really are similar. There are some nuances to them, but, so, if you go to page 5, so the thrust here is they don't want a lot of words. So you have short project abstract, 500 characters. And then if you go to page 6, this is the meat of it to some extent. Project narrative, 2,000 characters. Scope of work, 2,000 characters. Project implementation timeline, 1,000 characters. Progress to date, and I won't go through all of this because some of it is not actually precisely germane to what we want to talk about tonight. All of this has to be filled in. But long story short, in submitting an application, it has to be crystal clear what the town is seeking. And we really want to focus on what the Commonwealth is looking for. Not what we're looking for, but what they're looking for, because it's up to them to fund our project. And if it's so idiosyncratic that it doesn't touch on what they're focused on, then we will not have any hope of getting the grant. But in some of the materials, as I mentioned, there's specific reference to public realm and streetscape improvement once you have a plan, wayfinding and signage improvements, public facility and gathering space improvements. So we essentially can plan to do those things. And so to kind of facilitate the discussion, I've asked Jonathan to just give us a summary of what the advisory committee did with respect to the town center and the 3A. A lot of that information was really never presented to the planning board, and it wasn't included in the town center code that UTIL submitted. And then I also want to ask Emil to talk about the public realm. And if we were to seek a grant, we would want planning for the public realm and potentially also design, the preparation of design guidelines. And so Emil will speak to that, and then we can have an open discussion about what's likely, what's feasible, et cetera, et cetera. So, Jonathan, you're up.
So let's see, I guess I need to be promoted to a, yeah. Okay. I guess you guys can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the advisory committee was about 12 folks gathered from various interests in the town to help create kind of a focus group and a feedback channel for the process that UTIL went through to develop the 3A compliance and the form-based code. And what we did is we organized a series of interactive workshops that didn't involve UTIL, that really involved the volunteers. And I don't know why that's showing up there, but there we go. And what we did is we started off by trying to create a common language. And I think understanding how we worked on trying to create a common language dovetails nicely into what Marnie has just talked about in terms of filling out these forms and creating a narrative, in that we tried to use in the workshops common accepted professional nomenclature and definitions and elements in planning, especially when it came to the preparation for feedback on the form-based code. And I think that, like I say, dovetails directly into how this narrative needs to be set up and how to put whatever our final goal is for a grant proposal, how to put that into through the lens of something that the state will understand and accept. So that's the point of the first part of this. And then I just wanted to show a sampling of the sorts of things that we worked on with the advisory committee that were shared with UTIL, but not necessarily shared beyond UTIL. So in other words, they were sometimes pretty specific thoughts, ideas, connectivity, vision that helped inform why certain pieces of the form-based code are the way they are, but the ideas didn't necessarily get shared forward. So it might be useful for the planning board just to see a glimpse, just a quick glimpse of an overview of what that process was. But before I start that, I just wanted to go through just a couple of constructs that I think will be useful for us to understand for both the advisory committee work and also filling out these application forms. So the first piece starts with, I don't know if you can really see this, but it started with Kevin Lynch's basic principles about what are the elements of basically a memorable place that you want to be. And that's sort of what we all agree is valuable for Hamilton, and that's in the underpinnings of what the state is looking for. They want economic development and housing development, and the way that happens is to create a place people want to be, a place that's memorable, a place that's desirable, a place that's walkable and safe. So the elements, you probably can't really see them that well here, but there's 5 basic elements. Pathways, so that's sort of focused on the pedestrian. Roads, drives, walks, trails, anything that's focused on movement and pedestrians and free connectivity around the downtown. The second is landmarks, and that would be any kind of a structure or place that is an orientation point or a wayfinding element or a focal point, and it could be a building, it could be a park, it could be just something that kind of organizes the downtown. So an example would be the community center is kind of a organizing landmark. So is the public safety building, for that matter. So is Patton Park. The next is nodes, and a node is really just, if you think of a place to pause or an intersection where you might linger a bit. It's if you think of water movement, it's an eddy in a river or a stream. When you think about pedestrian movement, it's a place where you pause and talk or look at something or take a breath, make a phone call, whatever you're doing. So that's another component of really the sort of 5 really basic components of memorable place or downtown. And I know this says campus planning. This was taken from another project of mine, but it's Kevin Lynch's basic principles. And then the next is districts, and we talked about that basically ad nauseum with the 3A process. What's the difference between different neighborhoods, different streets? What makes up that character? Why are they different? Why should they be zoned different? We talked about that extensively in the form-based code and in the 3A process. And then edges. So edges are really important in the public realm. It's when you're in an outdoor room, what makes up that outdoor room? Is it a series of buildings that have common frontage or setback? Is it a row of trees that creates a canopy? Is it some other element that forms a memorable space that feels like you're bound and held by something? And that could be topography, it could be trees, it could be fences, walls, buildings. So those are 5 really basic components that were talked about in the advisory committee process, and you would want to be aware of as you develop either design guidelines or especially public realm standards. And then you can start breaking those down into finer and finer grain, and that's what some of these things are on the other side here. And I won't go into that in detail here. So then if you break it down even further, there's a fellow named Christopher Alexander, who's author of something called a pattern language, and that's a fairly universal, more refined set of patterns, which this is there's a series of samples here with diagrams that talk about, it's really through the lens of from a human psychology point of view, from a physical space design point of view, and from a just sort of a universal response to space or public space. What's the theory behind why people are drawn to this spot, not that spot? Why do they go to this park, not that park? Why do they sit on this bench, not that bench? That's what Christopher Alexander's about. And he has lots of patterns, hundreds of them. And I pulled out a few of these for this particular application, and they really are something that you look at in more nuance when you dive deeper into looking at the public realm. So examples are courtyards or arcades or activity pockets or garden walls that become seats in a node. Those are examples of Christopher Alexander type patterns. So those are some of the overarching principles that we tried to share with the fellow members in the advisory board, so we could have a common language when we looked at the downtown. So now I'll just do a really quick sampling of some of the work that we did specifically with the advisory committee. So we started off obviously looking at base maps. We looked at the Google Earth maps. We looked at assessors maps, and really tried to focus in on what the makeup of the downtown was, and we looked at which buildings were important landmarks. There's that term again. What the edges were, where there were nodes, that kind of thing, and we looked at that closely. And then we asked, and we went through other principles that are often used in planning, such as what comprises a walkable street, why are street trees and parkway and parks and greenways beneficial, what is street-oriented architecture. Just went through some of those principles. I'm not going to go through all of these elements, but again, this was sort of the preparation for how to have a group discussion about this, and kind of need to, if we're going to have a conversation about filling out these forms and agree on what these forms should focus on and what the wording should be in them, we kind of need to have a shared language. So that's what this preparation was. Then what we did with the advisory committee is we started off with a set of questions. Basically, okay, you've got these terms, these elements of what comprises a memorable downtown that has a sense of place, and we started to look at what are some of the patterns or elements that you notice in wandering around Hamilton. Some of these use different words than I just mentioned that Kevin Lynch used, but they're basically synonyms. Like it talks about patterns and edges. Well, patterns are kind of districts. We've already talked about edges. So we asked folks to walk around and look at where are there clear edges that make transitions between neighborhoods? Where do buildings and street patterns change, and why might they change in those spots? And we asked people just to start to fill out some of those questions and be ready to come in and talk about them. And we also talked about where are your favorite places, the places you want to linger. And that's, in some sense, that's landmarks and nodes, and again, back to that nomenclature that I was just mentioning. So we gave them some words around that and then said, tell us about what your experiences are. What places are special that you'd want to linger in, and what places do you not want to linger in, and how might you improve them? So we went through that sort of set of questions and discussion. Then we talked about walkability and connectivity. And so this is back to pathways that I was talking about as an earlier term. And we asked folks to talk about where they like to walk, where they're comfortable walking, and where were they uncomfortable, where were the challenges. So like an interesting thing that came up over and over is when folks were walking from Patton Park to Pingree Park, they didn't want to walk around along Bay Road. It felt really unfriendly. So often they went down Willow Street, which is quieter, but it didn't have sidewalks. So there was really no good solution. So it was really interesting feedback and a lot of anecdotes. And we just sort of gathered that information and sort of categorized it and mapped it and had further discussions based on the mapping and the patterns that we saw. Then we talked about, okay, you've looked at what's really special about downtown Hamilton, what's challenging and what you wish you had more of and what you might modify. What are some sort of patterns or principles that you'd like to have going in the future? How would you like to have more of what you like and less of what you don't like? And that was this task E at the bottom here. And I don't have all the answers here, but they're all collated. They're actually all public record because those were all submitted to UTL. Then what we did is we developed a few kind of sample ideas or principles of how might you take some of these observations and turn them into, first of all, patterns and mapping, and then how might you turn them into something that's more actionable. So portions of it were about what are the differences between the various districts and zones and organized by street. So up here you have the idea of the public realm and what's bikeable, what's walkable, what's the what are the ideals for street furniture and lighting, and then we started separating out the various differences in corridors, the Bay Road Scenic Corridor, the historic downtown, and then this term alleys was, if you thought of, and I think we've talked about this before in the form-based code process, but if you talk about Bay Road as sort of the scenic corridor, and Railroad and some of the other roads off of it are, you've got this spine, and then you have these alleys or branches off of it. And to think of Bay Road as the organizer, and then the subsidiary things are the branches off of that. Talked about that, and how is it working well now, what's not working, what's not connected. So this was just sort of a development of some of those ideas, and how might we activate some of those areas that are less accessible or deep lots. How might we connect some of these spaces? And all of that with the idea of activating or revitalizing the town, because one thing that we've talked about again in the past is how the challenge with downtown Hamilton is that there's barriers. There's a barrier with Bay Road, a major state road, sort of cutting it through the middle. Then you've got another diagonal cut of the railroad tracks where you only have two places to cross within the downtown district, on Asbury Street and on across Railroad to the Hamilton Crossing property, and that to a great extent those two elements really slice the downtown Hamilton into a series of fragments that are hard to connect. So talked a little bit about what could we do to compensate for that or enhance that. So those were some of the principles that were talked about. And again, the reason these are important is if we're going to talk about the public realm, all of these goals tie into, do you just beautify, or do you look at these goals and see if you can do better than what right now the way downtown Hamilton works with its challenges with connectivity and traffic safety.
So that's really great, because ideally, if we got a planning grant for the public realm standards, the information that you put together with the advisory group, it's public information, that goes right into progress to date. You know, we have
some analysis.
analysis.
Yes, and it can be mined.
Right, and then the HDC also had some planning done as well that can be mined.
Yes.
So I think that strengthens any kind of grant application. We have the language, we have ideas as to how to address the key components that these individuals, Kevin Lynch and Christopher Alexander, I assume they're academic planners that have written extensively about this. So we've got a leg up.
Yep. Yeah, but this is based in standards of planning.
Right.
It's not made up.
So we do need a formal plan. UTL never gave us that.
Right. So, but that would be one thing that we would be asking the consultant to do. But what we would do is we could go through, have the correct language, have the correct goals, have the
In
correct
1,000
analysis.
characters.
Yes. I think 1,000 characters is, what did we figure that out as, 2 pages?
500 a page.
Yeah, 500 a page. So
2 pages?
yeah, 2
Can
pages,
be
about
done.
2 pages,
Yeah.
12-point type, standard spacing. So 2,000 characters is about 4 pages. So, anyway, so
If
just
Marty can do it.
so another piece of the information that we gathered that helped inform the advisory committee process is we had the good fortune of having the chairman of the Historic District Commission on the advisory committee, and he shared historic photos. So this is a little hard to see, but is quite a lovely photo of Bay Road.
So
And you can see that it's tree lined. It's an outdoor room. Yeah, so there's an example of an
Downtown?
outdoor room with an edge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where?
that was our downtown. That
Looking
was
south from
Bay Road.
Moulton, looking south from Moulton Road.
So in any event, street trees aren't just beautification. They also strengthen. They strengthen a sense of corridor, sense of place. So this was, I thought, a very compelling photograph. It was one of our inspirations for thinking about Bay Road as a scenic corridor and how could you enhance that and bring that back to its former glory.
It's quite a distance from downtown.
Very, yeah.
Oops, what's that do here?
Anyway, that doesn't exist anymore.
For some reason my slide's stuck. Let's see what the problem is here. Let me try stopping the share and seeing if I can restart this. Seem to be having some technical challenges here. I don't know what's happening.
Did you lose your Wi-Fi connection?
I'm not sure. Doesn't look like it. No, I didn't. Maybe, for some reason the key, there we go. Okay. It was just, for some reason, everything was locked up. Okay. So what we did is we took that base plan and we started experimenting with elements on this that would be in alignment with some of the goals. They don't exist right now. We experiment with connectivity that doesn't exist, buildings that don't exist, elements that don't exist. But what could be possible if you took a more visionary approach to downtown? So this is an example of one of the illustrative plans that we looked at, and we took a stab at looking at where commercial might go, mixed use might go, residential might go, and some of these were folded into the form-based code, some of them were not. We looked at the idea of how might we create more connectivity. Could we create pedestrian connections, for example, between Cummings and the crossing of the railroad? And that's through private property, but if you have a vision, if you have an example of how things might work and an incentive to do it, there's no reason why somebody in a development can't say, okay, I see what the town is after. I'd like to offer that as an amenity to the town, and then in return I get my
Right, and,
Like permit.
and I hate to interrupt,
Sure.
but, if we were to get a grant, we would hope that the planners would give us the tools to make that happen.
Yes.
To have shared parking among different property owners, whether that would be through reciprocal easements
Yes.
or what.
Yes.
But the planners could identify how we can implement these types of visions. That would
Absolutely.
be part of their quote-unquote scope of work.
Yes. So the point of this isn't to say this will be done, or we want to code this, or this is required. The point is that you can see, for example, physically, these are very deep lots on Bay Road. There's enough room for there to be buildings at the backs of these lots and to have cross-through parking. And you'd have to have cooperation between neighbors, but with a little bit of vision and small incremental change, you can often achieve those things. I personally, in my work, have achieved those things in residential settings between residents. I've also achieved them in commercial settings. I think in the past I've mentioned a case study, for example, where we had 3 neighbors get together on the Gloucester waterfront. They all had permitting deficiencies with the state and the town, and they were able to eliminate those permitting deficiencies, those sort of violations, and in return they created the first ever pedestrian promenade along the waterfront. So here's a public amenity, a public realm amenity developed by a private concern through cooperation through the town as a result of, guess what, a master plan.
Right,
For
and
50
mutual
years,
benefit.
for 50 years, they're in the master plan, it said, we wish, the town wishes, we don't know how, but we wish we could connect this to this and connect that to that, and we wish that would happen. So here's an opportunity for the private developers to do it, and then they got something, town got something, and the rest is history. So it can happen, can happen. I'm not saying any of this will happen, but it can happen. And that's the point. So, in fact, there's even something very ambitious over here.
I see it.
There's enough space here without intruding on any of the buildings to put in a state regulation roundabout that would calm traffic and create a focal point, a gateway to town. Now, I'm not saying that the state would necessarily buy it or that the Hamilton would buy it, but it's physically possible. Is it desirable? That's up to Hamilton to decide. There's another example here of back to some of these terms, gateways or nodes. Here's an example of a node coming down Scenic Bay Road. What if instead of it was just being the trees in a row, creating a corridor, what if there was a little opening? Some of this is already here. This part's almost already here in front of the Winthrop School. You just have to put it on the other side, and now you've got this, you come down the scenic corridor and it opens into a room, and there's the gateway to Hamilton, to Patton Park, and to the school or whatever this is in the future. So these are just examples of thinking, taking these principles and using them in the downtown space. And again, if you don't have a vision, each developer is just going to be looking through their own little lens and doing their own little project within their own property lines. But if you have a vision, especially a vision of the public realm and some cooperation and collaboration, anything's possible.
So I don't know, in the interest of
I can move it along.
Yeah, because I want Emil I
Sure.
want to have a little more discussion here.
Yeah, so anyway, what we did is we went through this thing and each of these, there's lots of components here, and each one of them is put through a lens of what some of the goals that were established, so that from the core values. So this is just keying it all in, and talking about parking and networking and mixed use and whatnot. So it's breaking it down into the pieces and saying, how does this serve the interests that we established? And just looking at the.
I mean,
at the
this is
sample.
amazing for any kind of planner to have this.
It was just it was a focus group. What came out of a focus
Right,
group?
I know, but it's
So-
still, it's very sophisticated coming out of a focus group, really.
Was this artifact from that focus group shared with this planning board yet?
No,
If
he's
not-
doing it right
No,
now.
I'm doing it right now for the
So will
first
you
time.
email it to
Teal
us?
received
Yeah.
every bit of this information. Our assignment was to have this focus group, gather the information, and then share it forward to you, Teal. So there was approved minutes, and work product.
Yeah, it looks like there's a lot of great data points here, and I can't read it from this angle.
Sure.
So you'll
Can
share
you
it with us
share
over
it with
email?
us and Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll stop there.
Right, so, okay,
Sorry for the delays in there.
oh, no.
Oh, it's great.
So this is, obviously I've been talking to Emil, but, this is, we want planning grants. So what do we want to plan? We have two options really, and the question is whether we can get both. So you can plan for the public realm and pretty much, that's what Jonathan focused on, the public realm. Am I correct?
Yeah.
But the design standards, it would be great if we could get both. But Emil can speak to both the public realm standards and also the design standards, because I think a lot of people think design standards, that's just, we're going to tell you what your building should look like. And I don't know if you all have seen the design standards that the HDC put together, and they're old now, but it's essentially a vision of the downtown that's kind of neo-colonial, so to speak. It's more like what should the buildings look like, but design guidelines are much more than that, and they're really not intended to dictate what the buildings look like so much as how they relate to other buildings. But I'm going to let the real architect speak to that as opposed to,
That's one bad.
I don't know, what would you call it? He can speak to it better than me. What's that?
Facilitator.
Facilitator.
You pass those down.
Oh, sure. Oh, goodness, look at-
Thank you. In talking with Marnie, let me just say, the UTIL, in the original scope of services to hire a consultant, it was in the scope of services to do public realm standards, period. UTIL agreed to it because they responded to our RFQ saying, yes, we'll do it, and we'll do this at this stage, and this is how long it's going to take. Lo and behold, a couple of meetings in, we see a slide on the screen that made a distinction between public and private. And it was made clear by UTIL, we are not doing the public standards, we are not going to make them in the bylaws, we're going to deal only with the private realm. So what that essentially meant, and I pushed Zoe on that, and she said, no, we're not doing it, we're just not doing it. I said, well, of course, it was in your agreement. And I raised a lot of ruckus with a lot of people from top to bottom and got nowhere. But essentially, this would be, if we were to continue with the public space standards now, not as bylaws, but as guidelines, because UTIL's position was, this is public space, we can't put laws on it. So we can make it guidelines so that when the town, Tim Olson, whoever, wants to update a road or anything. They have some standards now they can look at and say, okay, the sidewalks have to be this and whatever. So I think it would be a natural for us to follow into the public space standards, number one. And number two, what we want to discuss just briefly later, well, what about folding public standards in with design guidelines? And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So I think those are two reasonable things to do, either one at a lower cost or both of them at a higher cost. But I think within the standards that they had allowed of 100,000.
Should we be aware of the reason that they would not touch the public realm? Is there something to be concerned about there?
Well, I got two responses during the meeting. One was from Matthew, and he said, "We are not going to do a 70-page downtown code." You know, he was looking at he was looking at downtown Hamilton's zoning bylaw, and it's a pretty simple document, and it's not elaborate in any other than cell towers. It's not elaborate in really any particular area. So he felt it was sort of out of scale with what my guess is, in talking with them a little bit, is that the 3A project sort of derailed their progress. They spent a lot of time that I think they did not anticipate on the 3A project. And they were also loath to get people upset with anything. I brought up the parking standards, as Jonathan pointed out. There was parking proposed, or the idea came up, why don't you have parking, shared parking, between two buildings? And it makes sense for everybody who has a business there, and it's good. It's good for the public. And they just didn't want to touch it because they saw sort of a red flag. If they cross a property line, they've got other issues, and the concern was getting town-wide approval.
So it wasn't a
3A
legal concern. It was more
process
about
made
amount
it
of work
messy.
for them.
The 3A process made it messy.
Got it.
It
Okay.
made them walk on eggshells.
Yeah.
Is really the gist of it.
And
And
I
so,
think
They
that-
became very timid
Yes.
in their approach.
But
'Cause
also,
all
I
these
think-
all these ideas that we gave them, were
As a
as Jonathan
practical
pointed
matter,
out.
they had a budget. They
Yeah,
had,
yeah.
and it was getting eaten up for 3A.
so,
Yeah.
so in summary, I wouldn't let
I don't mean to focus on that so much. I just
Yeah.
gave a
No, I only asked because if there's something we should be concerned
Legal.
about. It sounds like it's more of just
no.
a business.
It was a
Preference.
political issue, not
Yeah.
a technical issue.
Okay.
Suffice it to say that.
I'm just making the point to say this would be a natural second step.
Okay.
Form-based code number one. So this follows right in line with that, in my opinion. And then if we wanted to tag on the design guidelines, we can. But I just put together this sheet, or a couple of sheets. But if you wonder what's in the public space standards, this is kind of an outline of what you could imagine being there. And just to review, the public realm is from property line on one side of the street to the property line on the other. So it includes the front lawns, if there is one, sidewalks, streets, including parking lanes, and it would include street lighting, street trees, if we can get them in there. So it's everything really that is between private property on either side of the road. That is the public realm, and it is really crucial to get a public realm that has some vibrancy to it, that looks alive, that looks, it's not strictly utilitarian or, beautification, but it has a function to make the place safer, improve the walkability, encourage people to go downtown and stay downtown, and to move about downtown in a safe and comfortable fashion. That's really a sole purpose of improving that public realm.
Includes street lights, street signs,
Yeah,
telephone poles, power lines, all that. Anything within that realm.
correct. Not that's power lines wouldn't
Telephone
be.
poles, I guess I meant that's not
But
included.
you'd respond to them.
Yeah, respond to it,
them,
but yeah.
But you don't move them.
Street lighting, probably 1A is controlled by the state with these very tall lamps. What we would do is introduce really a pedestrian light right along the sidewalks that is much lower and it's more decorative. And we could pick a style and say, okay, this is the town center lighting fixture to be used. Again, just to create a little cohesiveness in the downtown, that this would be appropriate. We could change it on Willow Street perhaps or whatever. So that would be that's, all of that has to be studied. We have to look at the streets in terms of what's the traffic speed, what's the potential for parking on that. Already Railroad has parking on two sides. Willow, I don't think it has parking on one side, but it probably is wide enough to get at least one lane of parking on the side. And then we look at, just look at this for a minute, streets and sidewalks. So we look at the traffic zones, where the high-speed traffic and where the slower speeds. Identify the street types and the parking lanes. Then we look at the pedestrian zones, sidewalk types, and allowed uses. The pedestrian zones will be determined by how is that particular street zoned. For example, Willow Street, it's mixed use, encouraging commercial on the ground level, residential on the upper level. So there's a potential you could have restaurants there, maybe on Willow Street, or other types of small scale commercial. If you look at Railroad, already they're right up against the sidewalk, solid street wall on either side. That's one where that's really pedestrian oriented, strictly for retail, with the windows and so forth. So that's how we would kind of look at that to see where we could put in street enhancements. But it also is non-vehicular thoroughfares. Those are paths or walkways or greenways that we had looked at it with the advisory committee, identifying the Scenic Bay Road as a potential greenway that we could be working on. Street enhancements, crosswalks, curb extensions, outdoor dining perhaps, bicycle lanes and that sort of thing. Wayfinding and signage. That's one thing that the state is looking for. Site furnishings might be benches, bike racks, or waste receptacles. Again, there was some of that in the HDC that they were proposing along Railroad toward the Willow Street intersection. Pedestrian lighting, I just mentioned that, street and walk fixtures. Streetscape character, this is where we want to be very particular in the design. Landscaping, street trees, pavers, walls, and planters. The streetscape character of Bay Road is going to be one thing, and it'd be quite different from what you're going to see on Willow Street, which would be very different from Railroad. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It is what's going on that street, what's the traffic speed, what's the parking, what are the authorized activities on those streets, and that'll determine kind of what would be permissible there, or how you want to lay it out. And also the existing right-of-ways is existing, so we can't really control that. But this would also give us the opportunity, if the town were to create secondary streets, as Jonathan was pointing out, say between on deep lots where a pair of buildings, and then you had between the two, you had a passageway into a parking lot and out, or the idea of carriage lane, sort of discontinue the cul-de-sac, but actually continue that road back to the Cumberland Farms site, and then tie back into either 1A Bay Road or Walnut. Anyway, to eliminate that cul-de-sac would be a benefit. You get more of a network of streets than dead ends. So and the last thing is the civic spaces. So there are basically two things in the public standards: the public right-of-way and the civic spaces. What we need to do, and one thing that was missing with UTIL was the idea of creating these pocket parks. So if you're walking along a greenway, you come across, if there's an opportunity, and it's something that could be a found opportunity between two buildings, but it should be part of a public property, where it could be turned into maybe a small park with benches maybe and some landscaping in there where people could just pause in the walk. And again, it's just another feature in the downtown that would make it more appealing. And then activity type and character, that would be for civic spaces. What is the activity? So that basically is the public space standards. That's what we would work on basically as content, unless we come up with some other things. On the second page is town center design guidelines. And there were three basic categories at a minimum: site and landscape organization, architecture, and signage. The site and landscape organization is the relationship of this, the building, the circulation to the natural environment, number one. Number two, the relationship to the community. That's, how does it fit in terms of scale, character, and so forth. Open space, plazas, courtyards, and context. Again, this is all for private development. Where to put your parking in there, and trying to separate the pedestrian vehicular circulation. Surface parking, landscape design. So that's site and landscape organization. The architecture, again, a relationship to the site. Historic context, which is really important for Hamilton. Form and space, scale, massing, and proportion. Building elements, material color and surface texture, equipment and service areas. And lastly, signage. This is private signage for businesses. Come up with a family of signs that could be accepted. Not a single sign to be repeated over and over again, but one that where there's a relationship between the site and the architecture that would get into maybe color, materials, texture, whatever. The graphics, text, and information on the sign would be important. You could have in your overviews signages for identification. It's not for advertising. So you could be really pretty specific in terms of what your guidelines are going to require. So you prefer not to have something like walk-ins welcome. I mean, that's my personal opinion about that. But anyway, it's for identification, for ease of getting around, communicating in the downtown. And then materials, color, texture, signage, landscaping, and lighting, which is critical for traffic and so forth. So those are the three elements there. I also included a page from a town center guideline. And again, we are not going to be doing the guideline. We're not going to be writing it, but this is one sample how it was set up, say using materials, color, and surface texture, along with photographs to kind of express what the ideas or the statements are. And so you have at the title in red, materials, color, and texture. There's the overview. What are you talking about? High quality building materials helps establish an inviting sense of human scale. That's important, the human scale. So then you look at TC 41, use building materials that contribute to the visual continuity of the town center. So it doesn't say use building material A, B, or C, but it says refer back to the rest of the town in your materials. And then it talks about durability, and it talks about, second to last bullet, do not use imitation materials such as synthetic lap siding, stucco, as EIFS, panelized brick or veneer, stone veneer, or plastic except in limited applications, such as for an accent on upper floors. So that's something, and do not use highly reflective materials. So each one of these bullets is a guideline or a way to achieve that particular request. Use building materials that contribute to the visual continuity of the town center. So this is just a sample of what a design guideline could look like with this particular topic. So that, in kind of a real nutshell, is the composition of each of those two. And I guess what we're asking here is, I think Marty and I both feel that the public space standards is the next step, and that based on the form-based code, which was recently adopted, it would be natural for this to be the next step going forward to deal with the public realm, and in a way that now would be all appropriate, while it's still fresh in our minds what we were doing.
Right.
And UTIL is coming in at some point to give examples of administering the code in a way, so.
And ideally, it would be helpful to have the design guidelines done at the same time. So a grant to cover those two components. The question is, and Mark, we really need to hear from you. The question is, whether that's achievable, whether the Commonwealth, so this is the Office of Economic Development, whether they would look kindly on the development of design guidelines, or whether they would be more amenable to just the public realm standards. Clearly, they mention the public realm in their own guidelines. They don't talk about design guidelines, but when you think about it, we have the form-based code. We have a history of attempts to make the downtown more serviceable for everyone. And so it's logical to do the public realm and the design standards. So how much would that cost? I mean, how much does that cost? So if we ask for $80,000, are we likely to get it? If we ask for $70,000 for just the public realm, I mean, it's the back and forth. And so this is where Mr. Connors can come in and really help us decide which way to go and which will be most successful. And we will have to reach out to the HDC because clearly they're very much invested in this already. And they may be able to contribute some monies, regardless of how much. All these projects are viewed more favorably if you have more, other entities other than the municipality contributing either money, and in this case, it would be expertise as well. I mean, oversight would fall on Mark and Joe. So what do you think? Oh, we do have
Tonight.
one, I don't want to overstate this, but Pat Shannon, who used to be Joe's assistant, is now in charge of the One Stop program. So he worked in Hamilton and he's very familiar with Hamilton. So I look at that as a positive because whatever we say, it will resonate with him because he's been here.
They did say they really emphasize geographic diversity. Like they want every town in the Commonwealth to have this grant. Hamilton's never received this grant. Most of the towns around us have. So I think that helps us, and the fact that we've applied for this housing designation, that increases your score as well. And we applied maybe a month ago. I'm assuming we'll have an answer from the state by the time we apply for this grant. So those two things I think will benefit us. As for the cost, I don't know exactly. I think we need to put together like a one-page proposal, and I could kind of shop it around to folks. But I would guess it would be somewhere in the ballpark of what we spent on the town center plan, if not maybe a little bit less, hopefully.
Yeah, a little less. But
But I think Hamilton faces a set of very distinct, unique, and serious challenges in designing your downtown. So you can't just sort of pull anything off the shelf
Oh, no.
and use it. And I think if we were to have some money devoted in grants to selectively studying how other towns have faced these same 3 or 4 challenges, as opposed to just looking at what everybody's doing. It's like, how did they solve this? How did they accomplish this? So let me go through the couple of challenges. And this comes from spending a lot of time in, for a variety of reasons, Lincoln, Concord, Acton, with the West Lexington, the western suburbs. And the first challenge is small scale. Most of these communities have had very extensive, very interesting downtown redevelopments. Most of these communities are linear, like ours. There's a major road that runs through it, and whatever there is for a downtown is, half a mile, either side along a road. It's not like a hub of a spoke with a lot of roads coming in. So in some ways, they're very similar to us. We have 1A. They have 2A. We, we
And these are
so
historic roads.
okay. So there's some real similarities. The one difference is they are between 3 and 6 times the population of us, and at least twice the per capita income. So the purchasing power, the nature of the retail businesses that they can attract, they can become destinations because there are 30,000 people, 30,000 wealthy people, and they have lots of restaurants and they have lots of stores. We're 7,000 middle income people. It's just orders of magnitude different. So the first thing is, what do you do for a town that's very small in population, very small in resources? It's not the seat of the county.
Right.
There's no there's no reason for people to come here.
Oh,
Okay.
but they're going somewhere else.
Or they're passing passing through, they're passing
We
through.
have to get
But
them
that
to
is that
stop.
that is a huge constraint you have to live with.
Yeah, but we get them to stop. That's the challenge.
Maybe, okay. So scale. What are the economics of a small, tiny scale center? The second, even bigger, there are numerous trains running west of Boston. None of them go through the center of those towns. Sometimes it's by accident. So I don't think it was planned, but the linear centers of downtown are in front of behind the train station is not interfering with the absolute ground zero center of the town like it is us. So I think one thing we could do is we have the whole Commonwealth. We could identify, I don't know how we do it, maybe the MBTA would tell us, half a dozen other towns where the train stop is right at ground zero. What did they do? Did they elevate the train? Did they sub-elevate the train? Did they move the station back? Did they just live with it? Having crossings every 20 minutes during rush hour,
Yeah.
creating huge traffic. What did they do? It is the dominant character of downtown Hamilton is the friggin' train running through the center of town. What are the people doing? So that's the second one. The third one is kind of interesting. I got to, because I was traveling around to various schools, I noticed that almost none of them have schools in the downtown. You kind of think, it sort of makes sense. If you can put the school 5 blocks, or if it's new enough, so you put the school 5 blocks off to the west or the south, then all the queuing and the cars and so on don't go down Main Street. Don't create, traffic jams. You don't worry about the kids crossing the major highway at the lights. I mean, it just makes life a whole heck of a lot simpler. And that's interesting because we are in the decision-making mode about this question. And if we could somehow use planning resources to say, nobody's building new schools downtown. They're building them a half mile away or somewhere else. So that's 3. And the fourth was that I actually support most of the design standards that Emil has chosen, which is that all of these towns have parking. All these towns have storefronts facing the street, and they all have parking behind. Whether it's parking for some event or parking for the stores or whatever else, they've all bought into that whole concept, and it works. You drive down the street and you go, "This is really nice," and then you think, "Where do I find the parking?" Because there was little handful of parking spaces along the street. And then you see the big parking signs, and I see. We go behind, and we park, and that actually works. And then they're kind of the last thing is there's in terms of design standards, I noticed 2 distinctions. There are a couple towns like Concord where every little building has to be preserved because it's historically significant. In addition to being charming, but that's all right. What they've done is they've just infilled. They've left all those buildings there, and then they've infilled them with things that are not. They fit in, even though they may not be exact. And then there's places like Lexington. As far as I can tell, they wiped everything out. They built half a mile, a quarter of a mile of modern. It's not modern. It's sort of traditional brick, whatever it is. But they didn't try and save anything. They said what's here is just sort of. I don't know. This was done sort of in the 70s and 80s. I don't know what was there before, but
Yeah.
it obviously wasn't worth saving because they didn't save it.
Mm.
And they built everything from ground up, and it's
It's all commercial.
it's kind of it works, but you don't walk by and say like you do in Concord and say, "Oh, this is so gorgeous and cute and historic." In Lexington, you go by, it's very nice. Oh my goodness, look at all the cafes with outside sitting and everything else. But it's not cutesy and historic. It's just sort of nice new construction. So, but they both work. So you got to be flexible
Yeah.
in the design standards. But the one thing was crystal clear: parking in the rear, where you can, streets, entrances, streetsways, cafes, everything along the walking path, by the road.
And that's implemented in the town center code.
Yeah, but the thing is, we could use, we could say we need money to study, 3 problems or 4 problems that are really unique to Hamilton in order to make it, work in some way, and pose the questions.
Right. I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, I think almost because we have these challenges, it almost speaks to the reason why we need planning. I mean, to really address the very things that you have to say. And
We are a difficult case.
we may
need
never
the money.
be a total destination, but we could certainly be better for ourselves in Wenham. And really, if it is a more amenable place to be, and it has aspects to it that are very appealing, people who are going to the polo matches at Myopia or are planning to go to Crane Beach, they may stop and walk around because it's easy. It's not easy now, but it could be easier if we had a plan and we implemented cohesive public realm standards and design guidelines. I mean, people could just say, wow, this is a cute
The
little
crane, the
I'll
crane,
stop
the crane
here and
beach
walk
thing is
around.
actually. I asked the manager of Crosby's last summer. I said, "How many people stop here on the way to or from the Crane Beach?" He said, "Oh, tons."
Tons.
And then tons was his term. And then I click. I was somewhere down in Wenham, and I say, "Get me to Crane's Beach." And they don't go up to Ipswich and out Argillo Road. They go through Hamilton, and then they branch over onto Bridge Street, and then somehow work their way over to across 133, and then go out to that way. And that's how you're directed, not into Ipswich and out Argillo Road.
Well, there are a lot of people come up and they go antiquing. So they go to Essex, or there's some antique stores. There are antiques in Ipswich. Bob Orcutt's wife owns that store. Did you know that?
What?
Bob Orcutt, the vet,
Yeah.
his wife owns antiques.
Antiques, yes.
Yeah. I was surprised when I saw him there. But anyhow, I think what you said is really speaks to why we need assistance. And we've gone a long way in developing the vocabulary and some really good ideas with the advisory group. And I think it's just a function and we might not be able to determine this tonight, whether we should go for broke and try and do both the public realm standards and the design guidelines, or just the public realm standards, because I think well, tell me if you disagree, that might be a better first step than design guidelines.
And I would just like to offer,
But please speak to that, because I don't want to speak for anyone else.
with design guidelines really are street facing. They're not backyard facing.
Right.
So I would posit that design guidelines are about the public realm. It's just on the private property.
Right,
So-
right,
So
right.
it's the far edge of the room, i.e. the street room, is your building, and that's where the design guidelines are focused. So that's one edge of the room. And then the next edge of the room is the is the sidewalk and the trees and the streetlights and the benches. And then, so you've got sort of layers that make this edge. So I think you could easily argue that it's all one idea.
Yes, for the exact reason
Yeah.
you just said.
Yes.
Good
That-
thing it's on the record, because we could copy that and put that into the application.
And again, it's using standard
right.
Yeah.
nomenclature from planning.
right.
So
You're
it's
trying to
really
make-
not different. Go ahead, sorry.
You're trying to make that interface disappear. You're right. So that you don't know where's the public, where's the private. You know,
Exactly.
where does one stop, where does the other
Layered.
pick up?
Layered.
And the idea to create kind of an overall standard, even if the work doesn't get done, I mean, it's going to be a large amount of work. But I'm thinking of like if the HDC, rather than applying for $500,000 for all the sidewalks in downtown, you could almost pick particular, do both sides of Bay Road as a project. Once you have the standards, you know that what you're going to do is have something unified in the future, because the other standards will be drawn up in a way that everything is cohesive. And that's the idea, to get the plan in place first. And the other thing I like about design guidelines, it is informative to a developer who is interested in doing a project in the downtown area. They all want to pick up a copy and they look at it and what do I have to do to get an approval? And they want to be as cooperative as possible, and where your design guidelines offers different ways to achieve a particular effect, if they can find that to be satisfactory for them, they'll do it. And so it's the idea of kind of leading the developer in the right direction to do it the way the town has decided to go forward. I just want to comment on, because I'm really sensitive to making Hamilton into something that it is not. And I think that, there are very few, and Bill pointed out, there are very few, we're not Lexington, we're not Concord. We don't have the history and all of that, but we do have something that is really desirable, and that's what we ought to build on. And that's where I think the simplicity of Hamilton Town Center should be on the forefront. The landscaping, don't make it too sophisticated looking, too fancy, too idealized, because that's not what Hamilton is. And I don't think it ever wants to be. That's the one thing I've learned in my years here. People say, leave it alone. Don't change anything.
If you refer back to the master plan, the idea of open space and equestrian area, I mean, that's what people
Open
move
space
here
is
for, right?
the single,
It's not meant to be a destination place, other than the fact that people want to move here to live here,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and that message to me about open space is every single plan, every single design in this town ought to be focused on open space and make that the design determinant. How do you use open space effectively? And because that's the only way to continue this kind of rural feel to it. And that's really the kind of the key. So I don't see this as a project to kind of change dramatically. I think you come back in 25 years, you'll recognize the place. And
You just capitalize on the strengths it has today.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
we're
that was
not-
really what came out of the advisory committee, is that wisdom.
Yeah.
Is here are the things we value, we want more of those,
Yep.
and less of these other things that are intrusions.
Agree.
The one thing I'd add, Bill, to that list of issues we face is the lack of sewer. You know,
Yeah.
Yes.
I was talking to Rick Mitchell about the pharmacy building that is vacant.
Which
And if there's been
building?
any word on
Which-
it.
Connolly's.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
I don't
yeah.
know if he really wants.
And he said the second story is vacant. And I was telling him with the zoning you could do apartments up there or something. But he said the building doesn't have a modern septic system. It has, I forget the term, whatever came before modern septic systems. So if anything was to go in there, it'd have to be totally overhauled. And these lots are just teeny tiny. So,
Yeah.
where do you put a modern septic system?
Yeah.
That might be something we could look at, is because all these properties face the same kind of issues as parking and septic, things like that. Some kind of shared solution.
So Mark, how do you think we should proceed?
Let's write up a sort of one-page scope and shop it around to the board and make sure everyone's kind of on board with it. And then I can send that to consultants and kind of get an estimate of how much that would cost.
And should we
I
go?
mean, I would, I think the design standards are very important, but it's kind of like a cart and a horse. Don't we need to know, where the town is going, even if it's not gonna change? What about schools, community centers? What about, the trains? What about, you know, the sewage system? Don't we need answers to those questions before we start saying how we want the buildings arranged and what they look like? Or maybe it doesn't make any
I
difference.
don't think it makes any
Maybe
difference.
it doesn't make any.
I don't think it makes any
I
difference.
think that as you make a place more desirable, you figure out those technical solutions. They follow. If some place is desirable, a perfect example is, a destination community. Cape Ann is a horrible place to develop because every single lot is non-conforming and everything's on solid rock. You can't do anything easily, yet it's a very strong destination. So what people do is they get creative about septic systems, they get creative about parking, they get creative about these technical problems because they want to be there. So it's sort of like if you build it, they will come. You need to create something that is desirable, and then there's a motive to solve these technical
Right.
issues. That would be my
Okay, so
comment on that.
we'll try and write up a one-page scope that will include the public realm standards and design guidelines and see where we go with that. And, the first consultants I would get in touch with probably would be UTIL because they'd hit the ground running. They wouldn't have to do, 6 to 10 hours of familiarizing themselves with existing conditions. I mean,
And
that,
they've already seen all the ideas that came out of the
Right.
advisory committee.
yeah, I mean, that's what I said, they'd hit the ground running. So, we'll work on that, and, so at the next meeting, we should have more information, and, then we can, think about getting a rough draft of an application. See how we, and we will know at that, shortly about, our designation, right, Mark?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I'll check in with Steve.
So,
So the deadline then is
June
June
3rd?
3rd for an application,
Yep.
completed application.
Yeah. We submitted the housing designation
Yeah.
back in February, so I would assume certainly by then we would know.
and we meet the criteria, so
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think it's gonna be, yeah,
I haven't heard anything, so I think
Yeah.
no news is good.
okay. So, we'll have to be, careful about meeting this deadline, but I think we can do it. I think we can do it. So, next item, master plan implementation. Formation of a implementation committee. Well, my letter, that I sent almost a year ago failed to elicit a response, at least a formal response from the select board. Regrettably. So, I don't know if you've had a chance to read my revised letter, which is, okay, no implementation committee, but can we just, as a town, have the boards and commissions and the town officials meet annually or semi-annually so that we can talk about the master plan, and whatever boards and commissions are doing, they're working toward fulfilling the action items in the master plan and not working at cross purposes. So, we could consider taking a vote on whether or not this revised letter should be sent and preceded by any kind of comments or discussion as to how this letter could be changed.
I think we should send it. I think we should send it as is.
I guess the question would be, for a meeting like that to be successful, you still need somebody to create framework and facilitation. And how would you do that?
Well, it's almost as if the planning board ought to take the select board's role, to organize it and
Oh.
if
so-
anything's gonna happen.
So I could add at the end, meeting schedule, I could say that the planning board is willing.
That wasn't the answer I was suggesting, but I was posing the question as a.
I think you were volunteering. Were you volunteering?
I am not volunteering.
No, I
But for
actually,
it to be a successful meeting, it has to have some framework.
Oh, absolutely right.
Otherwise, it's just,
Somebody has
it's
to
just a
drive.
coffee klatch.
Yeah, I agree.
well, I mean, or it would have to be organized by the town manager.
You could say with the assistance of the planning director.
Okay,
The problem with us just taking the lead on it is that we're often in the dark,
Yeah.
what other boards are doing, whereas Joe should have the big
right.
picture.
So he actually, and at one point he did do this, because I know I attended some meetings that there were a number of people there, but the agenda is really the action items in the
Yeah.
in the master plan.
I mean, what you could almost do is in another paragraph, you could frame the preparation for it, which might be that each board is responsible for taking their action items and providing a brief
Yeah.
summary of where they're at or not at in preparation for the meeting, so
Right.
that the facilitator can then put the agenda together.
Yeah,
So that could be right in this letter.
yeah. There has to be, what is your goal when you have your meeting?
Right.
What are you trying to
Right.
do? And-
Right. If it's just sharing information, that's great, but you gotta get
Yeah.
each board to organize beforehand,
No,
not just
no,
show up.
I took my old letter and just cut and pasted. So, I didn't, you are 100% right. So, I will add another paragraph. And, we can finalize it, at the next meeting.
And then they can edit that paragraph, but at least you're creating the beginnings of framework for a framework.
Right,
Yeah.
right, obviously. Okay, I will do that. And then, so the next meeting, we can determine, whether to send it. So on the agenda, accessory dwelling unit design guidelines, I think we've got enough design guidelines on our plate at the moment. I think we should just defer that for the moment. And the town center zoning, we've really addressed in terms of the grant opportunities, but do we have any timeline from UTIL on when they might start their presentations?
I'm hoping Monday I'll sort of have an intro meeting with them to sort of kick things off, and I'll have a better idea then what we're looking at for a schedule.
Right, and so the next item is the GPOD, and Pat Norton was going to help us on that, and regrettably, he's not here. So perhaps I will reach out to him and see if he had any suggestions about the language that we had come up with, and I can report back. And then finally, the small clean energy projects. Is there anything we have to do tonight with respect to that, other than be
No,
afraid, be very afraid?
There's just a one pager in here that kind of sums up where the state is on this. I've spoken to Representative Hatner about this because the way it's written now, the towns have to, goes into effect in July, the towns have, it's in effect for towns starting October 1st. the state has a tendency to do these things where they don't consider like the town meeting calendar.
Yeah.
Because we typically have the town meeting sometime in October, November, special town meeting or annual town meeting in April. We don't typically meet in September, and it'd be very odd, I think, to have a meeting for one single item, so.
Yeah.
I've spoken to her, and she understands, I think, that it just doesn't work for towns, and the town means schedule of government, so
Yeah.
we're hoping that we can get that schedule adjusted, because it's really going to work for our purposes. So we haven't heard back from the state, but I'm hoping that we get some flexibility with that. We will have to make some zoning changes, because the way the state's written the code, the sort of default local representative, local government representative would be the select board chair, would be the person interacting with the applicant, and obviously, I wouldn't expect our select board chair to do that or want to do that. That would fall in my lap. But not every town has planners, so the state kind of writes the regulations in an odd way, I think. But so we'll have to make some zoning changes to account for that.
Well, there's the last paragraph, need help? Because it seems like we need it.
I do know that the state's not to a place where these are final. The regulations are final, but the guidance is not final. So no town is making changes for this in springtime.
Oh, right, and most towns, again, their town meetings are later in October, right? The-
Yeah, not in September. It's
Right,
late October,
yeah.
November.
Right,
So at the next meeting, we do have the high school solar.
Yeah, the next
Farm.
we have a few applications actually. We have
Oh, okay.
the high school wants to do solar panels as part of their
Does that fall under this category then? Is that
because it's not
clean energy?
active yet. It doesn't take effect until July, so it would just
Okay.
be under our local bylaw.
Okay.
We have that. We have a preliminary subdivision for a small 3-lot subdivision off of Meyer Lane. And we have a stormwater permit, so there'll be a few applications running for Senate.
what's the stormwater management one, do you know?
It's a single-family home on Spindler Drive.
Okay.
So I know we're jumping way ahead here, but has the high school submitted like a decommissioning plan for that? I know solar collectors have a limited lifespan,
Mm-hmm.
and then when the lifespan is up, you have to do something about it. And so, and there's also kind of environmental consideration for the decommissioning.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know I'm jumping way ahead, but,
Yeah.
you know,
I don't recall seeing the application materials, but I've dealt with solar applications where the town's done a couple different things. They can hold like a bond, so
Yep.
they have to clean it up once it's decommissioned, or they require some kind of plan that they.
Right.
So, I'll get back to them. I'll forward out some materials. So remember seeing.
just trying to think of things that
Think ahead.
think ahead, yep.
Okay, any other business? Anyone?
Shall I make a motion?
Well, I do have, I have to alert everyone, I am going to be out of the country on vacation for our next meeting, and I am going to attempt to Zoom into the meeting, but because I will not be in the United States, and I cannot guarantee I will succeed in that endeavor. I've asked Emil to chair the meeting. I will ask him to do that in any event, just in the event I would lose connection or whatever. So I will do my very best to attend. And I will obviously, it's hard for me to keep my mouth shut, so I will participate. But Emil is going to be in charge. So now,
Oh, yes, I move that we adjourn for the evening.
do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Bye.
All right.
All right.